Hey everyone, Brad the mechanic here. Today we have a 2008 Chevy Malibu. I'm going to be doing the rear wheel bearing on it. I'm also going to be showing you how to take off the caliper and everything. What I was doing brakes on it the other day, and I noticed the wheel has play in it. You probably can't see it on the video, but it's moving just a little bit. And that's conducive with the bearing starting to go bad. And then now when we drive it, we can hear it grinding. So it's kind of like a low rumble. So I'm going to go ahead and get these taken off, and I'm going to get started here. First things first, jack up the car. Make sure you have a jack stand under it, because the wheel's going to be coming off, and if you're ever working on a car, you always got to make sure safety first. Alright, so we're going to take these off, get started. Now back here are two 14mm bolts here, and they are, so there is a, if you look right here, you can see there is this thing is flat on both sides. So if it doesn't come loose and this is just spinning, you're going to have to hold this with vice grips when you spin the 14mm bolt off. Alright, so got the vice grips on there in order to get that loose. Because like I said, this will spin, and if it's spinning, it's not going to loosen. So we'll get these off. I will show you these calipers have the screw type caliper that you have to spin to the right clockwise in order to get it to retract back into the caliper when you put new pads on. The tool that you would use is right here, and an extension goes in it, and one of these, which it's this one for this car, one of these will go in, and then you can spin it and it'll turn that so that you can get this in to have room for your new brake pads. Now that we have the caliper off, back here there are two 13mm bolts that you got to take off to get the caliper bracket off. So we are going to remove those right now. Sometimes you got to hold this rotor in place so that the bolts can come out by hand. Comes. I just leave it all together, that way I can put it back on. But if you're doing brakes, you're going to want to take these out and lube them in here and make sure that they freely move, because that's important. If they don't move, you'll have premature brake wear. So we got this. Now we are going to have to get behind here and get this bearing off here. Let's figure out what we got to do. So if you look back here, in order to get the 4 15 mil bolts that are holding the wheel bearing on, we have to remove the top bolt for the sway bar link. So I'm going to remove this. This is a 16 millimeter. We're going to remove this, and then we will have better access to reach the 15 millimeter bolts holding on the bearing. After removing the sway bar link, the bolt, you can move this down and around in order to get a socket on the 15 mils back here. So in order to make things easier, I just took this out of here, took the nut off, pop this out. That way we'll have a little bit more room to get behind here to get access to those bolts. As you can see, after I took that out, I was able to lower this whole knuckle down, which is going to make it a lot easier to get back here now with a ratchet. I have a 1/2 inch ratchet that I'm using to get in there. You can use like a breaker bar or something. But yeah, now there's lots of room to get back there and remove those and start banging on this. If you look back here, you can see 3 of the 4 studs and the plug that goes to the wheel speed sensor. So once you get this lowered, there's actually a good amount of room back here. So I am going to maybe shoot this a little bit with a little bit of WD-40, and then I'm going to bang on the outside to get this thing to come out of there. Hopefully, shouldn't be too bad, but it is pretty rusty. As you can see, this is a Michigan vehicle. A good way to tell, you can kind of hear, sounds crunchy, kind of grindy, and then this little bit of movement, it's hard to see it, but that little bit of movement is telling you that this thing's going to go bad, and it's going bad. So let's get the hammer out and bang on it. So let's see if it'll easily. It's going to take a little more banging. Just hit it back and forth a few times. And boom. Make sure you don't bang this thing up too bad. Alright, so once you get it off there, clean it out. I hit it with the wire brush. Tried to get all this corrosion out of there. This is the old bearing here. Way too much grinding going on there. Got the new bearing here. And then you can start all your nuts by hand. That way it'll hold it in there. Then install the rest of those 15 mil bolts and torque them down decent and tight. You want them. You don't have to necessarily torque them. Just get them tight, and they'll be all right. If you can see, got my ratchet right in here. I'm able to tighten these all up. I always go around, get them all snug so that doesn't go in crooked, and then I go back and I torque them all down. So yeah, get all those tight and you'll be good. Now I want to put that knuckle back up to where that control arm is. So as you jack it up, it'll slowly go back to where it was before so that you can replace that bolt that goes inside here. So you can see that lined up nice. Gotta just use your hammer hands, get it in there, spin it a little bit, and tighten that nut down. I used the hammer and banged it in a little bit. It was just fine. Make sure you replace this washer and the nut. And tighten her down. So as you can see, this is where the sway bar has to go in, right? So now we're going to lower the knuckle down a little bit and get these to line back up. Alright, so I'm going to lower it down. I'm going to stop right there. And now I can put that bolt through easily. Now take your 16 mil, get it in there. Now there is a washer. Goes right here. See that? Make sure you put that back on when you're reinstalling your sway bar link. Alright? It's important to do things exactly as they were so that we don't have any weird issues later. Not that it could really mess anything up, but it's there for a reason. Don't forget that your wheel speed sensor wire goes back here, plugs in here, then goes into the back. Okay, make sure it's clipped in before we continue. So yep, that's good. Those bolts are all tight. Sway bar link is attached. Now we're going to put the rotor on and the caliper, and we'll be just about finished. Alright, got the 14 mils tight, got the 13 mils tight, got the 24 tight right here. Got the 16 tight on the sway bar link, caliper bracket, rotors on there nice, wheel bearings tight. Everything looks good. I put a little bit of lube on all the studs because here in Michigan everything gets so frickin' rusty. But yeah, now let's put the once you put the wheel on, you'll be good to go. And just be careful out there and make sure that you're staying safe. Like and subscribe, y'all. Bye.